Well, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Today we saw the human toll of the Trump administration's federal job cuts. This was the scene downtown Washington as emotional USAID employees were given, yes, 15 minutes only to retrieve their belongings and remove themselves from their headquarters after losing their jobs. These kinds of layoffs are taking place across the country and in other parts of the world. I want to bring in Democratic Congressman Suhas Subramanyam, who represents Virginia's 10th congressional district. He has introduced legislation calling for, among other things, more transparency from the Department of Government Efficiency. And I want everyone to understand the congressman is en route to a town hall in his district on this topic, possibly others, and is pulled over to the side of the road so he can speak to us. So, Congressman, thanks for pulling over safely to the side of the road. What are you hearing so far from your constituents about this federal workforce reduction?
Yeah, my district is about 40 minutes from Washington, D.C., where a lot of the agencies are headquarters, and we have headquarters of agencies in our district as well. And I've heard a lot of confusion, frustration, chaos, and most importantly, just a lot of anger over how this is going down. It's one thing to make government better and more efficient. It's another thing to fire the very people who make government more efficient and serve the American people. And this won't just hurt the federal workers or the contractors. This will hurt all Americans and will have, irreversible damage to our country.
What do you want from DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, that you're so far not getting?
Anything. Answers, accountability, transparency, and really some sort of indication of what they're doing and why they're doing it. Now, I think I understand it now that we've had about a month or two to see it in action. I think this is more about revenge over political opponents and ideology and control over the federal institutions. I think that's what this seems to be really about, because if this was about cutting costs and making sure we're more efficient, you wouldn't be firing people, let's say the USDA, that do make sure our crops are healthy, right? Because even if you save $100,000 on a salary now, you're going to have millions of dollars in damage later on. And there's just so many stories that I hear all over my district of federal workers who, it's one thing, they are definitely concerned about their jobs, what's going to happen with their families, and how they're going to put food on the table. But they're also concerned about the work they were doing and how important it was. And it's going to do damage to everyone, not just federal workers.
And there have been, as you know, Congressman, some reassessments of these layoffs. Veterans have been called back after being fired. Certain essential workers that the administration discovered they didn't want to fire have been called back to work. Does that contribute, from your interactions within your district, to this level of confusion and dismay?
Yes, but at the same time, I also see those as victories, as the administration backtracking. Many of the stories that people shared with my office, we ended up bringing attention to them and putting pressure on the administration. And, they fell back. I think if the more people speak up, the more they're going to see some changes, because people have a lot of power in this instance. So I've encouraged people. We're having a town hall in about an hour, and that's where I'm going to right now. And, we had about 600 seats in the auditorium. 800 signed up, but we had to stop letting people sign up. There's thousands more that I think could end up joining us online. And people are telling their stories, and we're seeing change because they are speaking up. They're not letting this happen without a fight. And the more people fight, the more I think they'll see results.
Virginia's Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin has set up a website that advocates, it says, on behalf of federal workers who have been or will be laid off. It's sort of a resource available for these workers that the governor and his staff have put forward. What's your reaction to that?
Yes, we put a similar resource out. I think it's really rich that the governor, who's told these federal workers who are getting fired, instead of being their champion to go find another job in the private sector, I think the reality is he's running for president in 2028. And so, he's trying to suck up to the current president, and he doesn't have the best interests of Virginians in heart, because if he ran statewide in Virginia again, he would lose because of his actions right now. He's not doing things that are popular, and he's not doing things that are best for Virginians. And so that's my reaction to that.
In the cloakroom, when you talk to House Republicans, if you have the chance to do so, what are you hearing about the concerns that you're experiencing in your district? Is there any crossover among Republicans?
Republicans have been very silent. They've been very nervous. I think on the Democratic side, we've heard from constituents asking us to do more. I think my constituents appreciate all that I'm doing, but they want to know why Republicans are just letting this happen. And so I've always told people, yes, call my office, yes, send us emails, but call the Republicans too. Come out to their town halls as well. Show up and fight in front of them too, because that could also make a change. In the end, they have a very thin margin in Congress. They have a thin margin in the U.S. Senate. And so, we have to keep putting the pressure on them.
Congressman Suhas Subramanyam, thank you very much for your time, sir.